All right, let's talk about a common scenario. You're busy entering data into your table in Microsoft Access, and then it hits you. You're missing some information. You need to add something else, but there's no field for you to do it in. So we're going to talk now about modifying the table design. Still working with tables in Access, we're going to look at modifying the design from two different views, from our datasheet view here, as well as from the design view, and we'll look at the advantages of each. So let's go back to that scenario where we want to add some additional information, and in our scenario it's going to be an album cover. So each of these albums has a cover, obviously. It would be nice if we could attach it to each of the records so that later on when we get into Forms and start viewing each record in different ways using some tricks in Forms, we'll be able to actually see the cover of the CD or the record or the tape. Another thing that's been bothering me for quite some time as we've worked through this sample table is that some of the information's getting cut off. Look at album title here. Some of it's getting cut off, and that's just simply because the column isn't wide enough. So we're going to modify some column widths as well. Now we can do these design changes from two different views. We can do it right here in our datasheet view. We can also switch over to design view, and there's advantages to each. So let's look at both. We'll start with this annoying thing that's happening where information's getting cut off. I have a database open called Music Library 3, and I got it from my Lesson 3 folder of the exercise files. So if you want to open that up and follow along, you'll be right where I am right now. So the album ID you can see is just an automatic numbering system, and right now it's just way too wide. I need it to be wide enough to see the title, album ID, but it doesn't need to be this wide. So I can go in between the two columns. When I see the double arrow, just click and drag to the left. So that works. I can still see my title. Even better is to go in between two columns and double click. This is a trick you can do in Excel as well. So double clicking, you can see, will either increase or decrease the width of the column to accommodate the largest item. So I'm going to go through the rest of them here in my datasheet view doing this. So it's easier for me as I'm entering data to actually see everything, see more columns as well as I shrink down some of these column widths. And now I need to add that new field that's going to contain the album cover. Now you can see I could do it right from here. Add new field shows up. I could do some of the tricks like right-clicking to rename and so on. Or I can simply switch to Design View, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to go up to my View drop-down and choose Design View. Now this is a little bit easier to work with, especially when we need to define the data type and so on. So I'm going to come down here below Media, and I'm going to type in the name of this new field, which is going to be album cover. And when I click over here in the data type column, you can see by default a text data type shows up. And then you can see the field properties down below. But it's really not text going in there at all. It's going to be an image. So I'm going to click this drop down, and I'm going to choose from this long list, not memo, attachment right down here. And I'll be attaching a graphic image. Now with attachment selected, look at the field properties. There's only a couple to think about. One is a caption, and if I wanted to have a caption showing up on various forms, for example, later on, that aren't the actual label, album cover, then I can do that. But I'm going to leave it blank. Album cover kind of speaks for itself, and it will become the label when I start using forms later on. Is it going to be required? In other words, does something have to be in there? No, I'm going to leave it at no. I may not have album covers for every single entry, so I want to make this optional. So everything looks good. All I need to do is save my changes. If I don't, if I try to go back to my datasheet view, I'll be prompted to make a save, and I'm going to click the save button to avoid that. So now when I change my view back to datasheet, look at that. I've got a new column over here, which is attachments, and you can see the little paperclip icon represents the fact that it's an attachment type field. Now you'll notice that there's zeros showing up in brackets next to each one of these because currently there's nothing in those fields. So to add something, I can click on the field itself, and you can see I can't actually type in here. It's just a paperclip icon. But if I right click, this is the fastest way, and choose Manage Attachments, there are no attachments. I can have more than one, but I really only need one album cover. If I wanted the back, I could do that as well. But I'm going to click Add. And the next thing I'm going to do is just browse over to my exercise files. And in the Lesson 3 folder of the exercise files, you'll find the Boston CD. So click on that, click OK. It shows up here now. It's a JPEG, and when I click OK, look what happens up here. I've got a 1 in there. Now in this datasheet view, it's probably not the best view for looking at the album covers. Later on when we explore forms, you'll see how handy this becomes. Forms are a great way to either enter your data but also view your data, much better than the datasheet view that we're looking at here. So we'll save that for later. We'll put in some album covers, and later on when we work with forms, you'll see how nice we can actually place those somewhere on the form where they can be viewed properly. So there's a couple of design changes. We made changes to the actual table widths and column widths in the table, that is. And we made some changes by adding a field and choosing the type of field that we wanted in there. The data type in this case was an attachment, meaning we could attach actual files, in this case JPEGs representing the album covers. Changing the design of your tables in Access is easy, and it's inevitable that you'll probably at some point or another want to do it. So keep in mind that changing your database tables is something that's very common and very easy to do.